So now we are giving the walk. Try and give you some view here of this gorgeous place that I'm in. Coming up on, I've forgotten all the names of my beaches. I'm across from downtown in the West End, and I think this is Spanish Banks. Kitsilano's behind me, a few kilometers. What have I found? Talking to all these people. Therapists, counselors, teachers, emergency responders, retiring UBC professor, preppers, some granolas, old rock climbers, friends. Wokeness is everywhere. It's in every place where we work. It's this belief that we need to control other people in our society's views of because they're wrong. And people are feeling the pressure, even if they're not speaking out. So there's a couple of different types of people in this space. There's people like me. I'm going to speak out. I am speaking out. I'm in a position where I'm fortunate not to be able to be worried about cancellation because the firm that I work at is well aware of these politics and doesn't abide them. And encourages, and we have to foster in our world, in financial analysis, we have to foster open communications and debate, and even when we disagree with each other, it's like sometimes we yell at each other, but we know that we're friends, and there's a high degree of trust for us to be able to do that, to get to answers, because when we're charged with the responsibility of managing people's wealth and giving them the right advice, we don't have time for political correct bullshit. You know, in my workplace, we can call each other fucking idiots. It's okay. We still love each other. Where are we at? 10%. We still love each other. But in lots and lots of workplaces, people are afraid to speak, afraid to talk. I spoke with a teacher who's on his third suspension, sort of witch hunted by snowflake kids and accusations of racism and transphobia and words twisted into distortions. And these kids have no idea what they're doing, really, destroying people's lives with just no regard whatsoever, based on questionable assertions about the nature of reality. And we really are in a pickle. So what's happening in the schools is that those who have been speaking out are being persecuted. They're being suspended, investigated. They're not allowed to talk to anybody about their particular case. They're not allowed to talk to colleagues, not allowed to talk to students, not allowed to talk to media. Otherwise, they'll compromise their case. And these cases take years to work their way through the arbitration process and the investigations. And the suspensions take time. And those teachers who have spoken out and who are being investigated and who are suspended, maybe with pay, maybe without, can't compromise their cases, so they're silenced. And then the people in the work environment have seen what happens to people who question the narrative, are going along with it, nodding and smiling. Maybe they don't believe it, but they're nodding and smiling because they know that if they say anything, they're next. It's similar, like the vaccine mandates have placed people, non-conforming people, in lots of cases, or people who are viewpoint diverse or critical or free thinkers or wanting to make their own decisions instead of letting the government do it or allowing the government to tell them what to do. They're getting fired or suspended without pay. So they're removed from the workforce. Again, same as with teachers. There's investigations, there's lawsuits, so you're not really allowed to talk about it. But who's left? Who's left in those organizations are the conformists. So from the police forces, from the first responders, from the teachers, from the government workers, the people that are left behind are the conformists. And that makes our institutions extremely vulnerable because of these intimidation tactics and these viewpoint censorship tactics. There's things we know that we just can't talk about in public spaces. This leaves us extremely vulnerable because if no one is allowed to question something, the old Taoist adage, if everyone agrees something is beautiful, that is truly ugly. And that's what we have right now. We have a system in our public spaces, in our workspaces, all across employment fields where we must agree that something is beautiful. And that agreement is destructive to society. It takes us backwards. It limits our progress. It limits our ability to compete. It limits our ability to grow our economy. It limits our ability to properly educate our kids. No one in schools is allowed to question anything. Kids are getting shamed for not wearing masks. The teachers are soliciting whether or not kids are vaccinated, and they're putting pressure on kids, guilting and shaming them in public, creating a secondary class of people, targets, the unclean, the spreaders of disease. And that's a very, very dangerous kind of narrative to be spreading. I talked about the second phase of the pandemic earlier on, and we have to communicate some sense with our friends and our family and our loved ones, because right now we're being divided. We're being divided on all kinds of lines: racial lines, vaccine lines, viewpoint lines, even talking about really basic things like the nature of biological sex and whether a man can become a woman or not, or should compete in women's sports, which would just seem so basic and so common sense in a rational world. Yet people are defending these kinds of things and leveraging them to abuse others on a wide scale. The other thing that I'm finding in talking to people as I've been here in the last week is that one-on-one conversations, or conversations with families at a kitchen table, or over a beer, are so much richer, and we can cover so much more ground when we're having conversations in an auditory space instead of a digital one. In the digital space, we truncate everything. It's meme warfare in lots of cases. No one's willing to explore an argument. They just slap you with a meme that says, some gif that makes fun of you, or wrong, or no debate, or they just unfriend you and end the conversation. Well, we are seeing this even to the degree that it's happening with families. Parents are getting divided from kids, siblings, child siblings and adult siblings are at odds and deeply concerned with each other, afraid to talk to each other, not willing to understand what's happening, and rooted in absolutist kinds of perspectives. So we're very, very challenged right now, and we can hope that as we move through this phase of the pandemic, that and as we can get out and talk to more people, and I really, really encourage you to do it. Go talk to people, have people over for dinner, go out for coffee with people, go for walks with people, talk with people you don't agree with and maybe you don't understand, and try and explain some of these things and explore some of these things from a perspective of trust and respect. And you know what, you can set about the beginning of this expression that I hate: you can agree to disagree, but know that disagreement doesn't equal rejection, and we can really make good ground if we do that and get back to some human relations that we've been cut off from for the last 2 years because we're on Zoom calls, and we don't just bump into people, and we don't just say, hey, let's go do something. Look at this gorgeous view. There we go. Vancouver's gorgeous. Whoop.